A young girl name is Arya, and I want to tell you about the day that changed everything. Growing up, I wasn't the girl who had it all. We lived in a cramped two-bedroom apartment where the walls were thin and dreams felt even thinner. My mom, Marjorie, worked double shifts at the diner. My sister, Tanya, always reminded me that I wasn't pretty enough. And my aunt, Elaine, well, she had opinions about everything I did wrong. But despite all that noise around me, I held on to one beautiful dream. I wanted a fairy tale wedding. I know it sounds silly for a girl who counted pennies to buy coffee, but sometimes dreams are all we have to keep us going. I was 25 and working at this little coffee shop downtown when everything changed. It was just another Tuesday morning, and I was behind the counter making the same drinks I'd made 1,000 times before when this man walked in. He wasn't flashy or demanding attention like you'd expect from someone with money. He just looked tired, really tired. He ordered a simple black coffee, and when I handed it to him, our fingers touched for just a second. I felt this spark, this connection, I'd never experienced before. He looked up at me with kind eyes and said, "Thank you, Arya," reading my name tag, but the way he said it made my name sound special, like it meant something. His name was Caleb, and he started coming in every morning. We'd chat about books, about life, about everything and nothing. I had no idea he was wealthy. He dressed simply, drove a regular car, and treated everyone with respect. After 3 months of these morning conversations, he finally asked me out. I almost said no because I was scared. What could a girl like me offer someone like him? But something in his voice, his genuine smile, made me say yes. Our first date was at a small Italian restaurant. Nothing fancy, nothing expensive. He wanted to know about my dreams, my fears, my family. When I told him about growing up with so little, he didn't pity me or try to fix everything. He just listened, really listened. That's when I knew he was different. Most people either judged me for being poor or tried to save me from it. Caleb just accepted me exactly as I was. 6 months later, on a quiet Sunday evening in my tiny apartment, he got down on one knee. There were no cameras, no crowd, no elaborate setup, just him, me, and the most beautiful ring I'd ever seen. "Arya," he said, his voice shaking slightly, "you make me want to be better every single day. Will you marry me?" I couldn't speak. I just nodded through my tears and whispered, "Yes." That moment felt like every fairy tale I'd ever dreamed of rolled into one perfect memory. But then came the hard part, telling my family. When I called my mom to share the news, the silence on the other end lasted so long I thought the call had dropped. "A billionaire," she finally whispered. "Arya, are you sure this isn't some kind of joke?" My sister Tanya's reaction was worse. She laughed, actually laughed, and said, "Right, because men like that fall for girls like us." My Aunt Elaine was the cruelest. "Honey, men that rich don't marry poor girls unless there's something in it for them. What did you have to do to get that ring?" Their words stung because part of me had wondered the same thing. But when Caleb insisted on paying for our entire wedding, saying he wanted to give me the fairy tale I'd always dreamed of, I saw something shift in my family's eyes. It wasn't happiness for me. It was something darker, something that made my stomach turn. They smiled to my face, but behind those smiles was a resentment I'd never seen before. Little did I know that resentment was about to destroy everything I held dear. Wedding planning should have been the happiest time of my life, but it quickly became a nightmare I never saw coming. The moment Caleb handed me that black credit card and said, "Get everything you want, love. This is your dream wedding," I should have been over the moon. Instead, I felt this knot forming in my stomach because I knew what was coming. My family's fake smiles were about to turn into something much uglier. The first red flag came during venue hunting. I'd fallen in love with this beautiful garden venue. Nothing too fancy, just perfect for the intimate ceremony I'd always imagined. But when my mom saw the price, she scoffed. "Arya, honey, don't you think you should go bigger? I mean, if he's paying, why not get the most expensive place in town?" Tanya chimed in with her usual venom. "Yeah, make sure everyone knows you hit the jackpot." The way they said it made me feel dirty, like I was some gold digger instead of a woman in love. Every single wedding decision became a battle. When I chose simple white roses for my bouquet, Elaine rolled her eyes and said, "How boring. Rich people expect exotic flowers." When I selected a modest menu for the reception, my mom complained, "People will think he's cheap if you don't serve lobster and champagne." Nothing I wanted was good enough for them. They weren't celebrating my wedding. They were planning their own fantasy party with someone else's money. The worst part was how they talked about Caleb when he wasn't around. "He's probably just using you for some tax write-off," Tanya would whisper. "Men like that have prenups that leave you with nothing." My mom would nod along, adding, "You better make sure you get pregnant quickly, honey. That's the only way to secure your future." Their words were like poison seeping into my thoughts during quiet moments when doubt crept in. Caleb noticed the tension, of course. How could he not? During our cake tasting appointment, my family showed up 40 minutes late and then complained about every option. "This is what passes for wedding cake when you're rich," Elaine had said loudly enough for other customers to hear. I was mortified, but Caleb just squeezed my hand under the table and whispered, "It's your day, not theirs." His calm strength was the only thing keeping me sane. But they were wearing me down. Every dress fitting became a critique session. "That dress makes you look poor," Tanya would say. "You need something that screams money." When I tried to stand up for my choices, they'd gang up on me. "We're just trying to help you fit into his world," my mom would say with fake concern. "You don't want to embarrass him, do you?" The breaking point came 3 weeks before the wedding. I was showing them the final timeline when my mom suddenly asked, "How many of our friends can we invite?" I explained that we'd already sent the invitations for an intimate ceremony. That's when the mask finally slipped. "Intimate?" Elaine's voice turned sharp. "Arya, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to show everyone what we're worth now. You're being selfish." That word hit me like a slap. Selfish for wanting my own wedding to reflect what I actually wanted. I looked at their faces, really looked, and saw the truth I'd been avoiding. They weren't happy for me. They were angry that I'd gotten something they thought they deserved more. The little girl in me who'd always craved their approval finally understood that no amount of success would ever be enough. They didn't want me to be happy. They wanted me to be useful. As I lay in bed that night, Caleb sleeping peacefully beside me, I felt this cold dread settling in my chest. Something was wrong. The way they'd been acting, the strange looks they'd been exchanging, the questions about vendors and timing. I couldn't shake the feeling that they were planning something that would hurt me in ways I couldn't even imagine yet. I woke up on my wedding day with butterflies dancing in my stomach, the good kind that comes with anticipation of something beautiful. The sun was streaming through my bedroom window, and for a moment, I felt like a princess in a fairy tale. This was it. This was the day I'd dreamed about since I was a little girl playing dress-up in my mom's old curtains. I had no idea that by noon, those same butterflies would turn into a sick, twisted knot of betrayal. My family was supposed to arrive at 8 to help me get ready. The hair and makeup artists were scheduled for 9 o'clock, photography at 10 o'clock, and the ceremony at 2. Everything was perfectly planned, every detail coordinated. But when 8:30 came and went with no sign of them, I started to worry. I called my mom 3 times before she finally answered, sounding strangely distant. "Oh, we're running a little late, honey. Traffic, you know how it is." Something in her voice made my skin crawl, but I pushed the feeling away. Not today. Nothing could ruin today. When they finally showed up at 9:45, they looked different. Their smiles seemed forced, their eyes were cold, and they barely looked at me. "Sorry we're late," Tanya said, but she didn't sound sorry at all. She sounded almost pleased. I was about to ask what was wrong when my phone rang. It was Kristen, my hairstylist. "Arya, I'm so sorry, but I can't make it today. I had a family emergency." My heart dropped. "What?" "Kristen, this is my wedding day." But the line was already dead. 5 minutes later, the makeup artist called with the same story. Family emergency. Couldn't make it. "So sorry." I stared at my phone in disbelief while my family stood there watching me with these blank expressions. "That's weird," my mom said, but she didn't sound surprised. She sounded like someone reading lines from a script. That's when the first wave of suspicion hit me, but I couldn't let myself believe it. Not them. Not today. I tried to stay positive. It's okay, I said, my voice shaking slightly. I can do my own hair and makeup. It'll be fine. But as I was digging through my makeup bag, my phone rang again. The florist. The wedding cake had been accidentally destroyed in transport. The flowers I'd ordered were somehow mixed up with another order and were completely wrong. The photographer had a sudden illness. One by one, every vendor I'd carefully chosen called with disasters and emergencies. I felt like I was drowning. Each phone call was another wave pulling me under, and I couldn't breathe. This can't be happening, I whispered, staring at my reflection in the mirror. I looked pale and terrified, nothing like the glowing bride I was supposed to be. That's when I noticed my family in the reflection behind me. They weren't panicking or trying to help. They were just watching, waiting. The final blow came when I went to get my wedding dress. I'd hung it carefully in the guest room closet wrapped in protective plastic, but when I pulled it out, my blood ran cold. There was a huge red wine stain across the front, and the hem was torn in 3 places. The dress was completely ruined. I sank to my knees, holding the destroyed fabric, and finally let myself see the truth I'd been fighting all morning. How could this happen? I whispered, looking up at my family. That's when Tanya's mask finally slipped completely. She shrugged with this cruel little smile and said, "Accidents happen, Arya. Maybe this is a sign that you're in over your head." My mom nodded sadly, but I could see the satisfaction in her eyes. "Honey, maybe we should just call this whole thing off. Save everyone the embarrassment." The room spun around me as the full weight of their betrayal crashed down. This wasn't a series of unfortunate accidents. This was planned, orchestrated. They had systematically destroyed every single element of my wedding day. My own family had sabotaged the most important day of my life because they couldn't stand to see me happy. They couldn't stand to see me succeed where they had failed. I looked at Elaine, hoping against hope that she would at least show some remorse. Instead, she crossed her arms and said the words that broke my heart completely. "You never deserved any of this anyway, Arya. Girls like us don't get fairy tale endings. It's time you learned that." In that moment, surrounded by the wreckage of my dreams and the cruelty of the people who were supposed to love me most, I felt smaller and more alone than I ever had in my entire life. I was sitting on the floor of my bedroom still in my pajamas, holding my ruined wedding dress, and crying so hard I could barely breathe. My whole world had crumbled in the span of 3 hours, and I felt completely broken. That's when I heard the front door open and Caleb's voice calling my name. "Arya, sweetheart, where are you?" The warmth and love in his voice made me cry even harder because I was about to disappoint the one person who truly loved me. He found me there on the floor, surrounded by the evidence of my family's betrayal. His face went from confusion to understanding to something I'd never seen before. Not anger exactly, but a cold, calculated fury that made the air in the room change. He knelt beside me and pulled me into his arms, and I broke down completely. "I'm so sorry," I sobbed into his chest. "They ruined everything. Our wedding is destroyed, and it's all my fault for not seeing what they were doing." Caleb held me tight and let me cry until I had no tears left. Then he pulled back, looked me in the eyes, and said something that surprised me. "Arya, I know." I stared at him through my tears, confused. "What do you mean you know?" He sighed deeply and brushed a strand of hair from my face. "I've known about your family's true feelings for months. I hired a private investigator after some things they said didn't sit right with me. I know they've been planning this." I felt like the world had shifted beneath me. "You knew, and you didn't stop them?" For a moment, I felt angry, betrayed all over again. But then he explained, and everything made sense. "I needed you to see who they really are, Arya. I could have told you, but you would have defended them, made excuses, blamed yourself. You needed to see their true colors with your own eyes, and I needed to be prepared." That's when he pulled out his phone and made a single call. "It's time," he said simply. Within minutes, I heard cars pulling up outside, voices in the hallway, people moving around the house. Caleb helped me to my feet and led me to the window. What I saw below made my jaw drop. A team of professionals was unloading equipment from multiple trucks: florists, photographers, caterers, stylists, decorators. An entire wedding crew was setting up in my front yard. How is this possible? I whispered, watching them transform my ordinary neighborhood into something magical. Caleb smiled and wrapped his arms around me from behind. I told you I wanted to give you the fairy tale you always dreamed of. I had backup plans for everything, including backup plans for the backup plans. Your family may have destroyed Plan A, but they had no idea about Plan B. My family stood in the living room looking confused and increasingly uncomfortable as professionals swept through the house. That's when Caleb walked downstairs, and I followed behind him, still in shock. He didn't raise his voice or create a scene. He simply looked at my mom, sister, and aunt with this quiet authority that commanded the entire room. "Ladies," he said calmly, "I think it's time for you to leave." My mom tried to backtrack, suddenly realizing how badly they'd miscalculated. "Caleb, there's been a misunderstanding. We were just trying to help Arya." He held up his hand, and she stopped mid-sentence. "Marjorie, I know exactly what you were trying to do. You tried to destroy the woman I love on the most important day of her life because you couldn't handle her happiness. That tells me everything I need to know about your character." Tanya stepped forward, her face red with embarrassment and anger. "You can't just kick us out. We're her family." Caleb's response was so calm it was almost scary. Family doesn't sabotage each other's dreams. Family doesn't try to humiliate and hurt the people they claim to love. You're not her family. You're toxic people who have been holding her back her entire life. He gestured toward the door where two security guards had quietly appeared. "Gentlemen, please escort these ladies off the property. They're no longer welcome here." As they were being walked out, Elaine turned back with one final cruel comment. "This won't last, Arya. Men like him don't stay with girls like you." But for the first time in my life, her words didn't hurt me because I finally understood that her opinion of me said nothing about who I was and everything about who she was. What happened next felt like something out of a movie, but it was real and it was happening to me. Within 2 hours, the team Caleb had secretly arranged transformed everything into something more beautiful than I had ever imagined. The backyard became an enchanted garden with fairy lights strung between the trees, white roses everywhere, and an altar that looked like it belonged in a fairy tale. The photographer captured every moment, the musicians filled the air with soft melodies, and the caterers prepared a feast that smelled incredible. But the most amazing part wasn't the decorations or the food. It was how different everything felt without the weight of my family's negativity pressing down on me, the team treating me like a princess, the hair and makeup artist who made me feel genuinely beautiful, the wedding coordinator who smiled at me like I was her own daughter. These strangers showed me more kindness in 2 hours than my own family had in months. When I finally looked at myself in the mirror, wearing the backup dress Caleb had secretly ordered, I didn't see the girl who grew up poor and apologetic. I saw a woman who deserved love, respect, and happiness. The dress fit perfectly, the makeup was flawless, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly beautiful, not because of what I was wearing, but because I was finally free from people who made me feel small. The ceremony itself was intimate and perfect. Only 20 people attended: Caleb's closest friends, his business partner who had become like a brother to me, and a few coworkers from the coffee shop who had genuinely celebrated our engagement. These people looked at me with love and joy, not judgment or jealousy. They were there because they wanted to witness our happiness, not because they felt obligated or wanted something from us. When Caleb and I exchanged vows, his words made me cry happy tears for the first time all day. "Arya," he said, his voice strong and clear, "you taught me that real wealth isn't measured in money, but in the quality of love we give and receive. Today you showed incredible strength by walking away from people who couldn't appreciate your worth. I promise to spend every day of our marriage showing you how precious you are." My vows were simple but came straight from my heart. Caleb, you didn't just save my wedding day. You saved me from a lifetime of believing I wasn't good enough. You saw value in a girl who served coffee and treated her like a queen. Today, I'm not just marrying the man I love. I'm choosing to build a family based on respect, support, and genuine care. As we shared our first kiss as husband and wife, I felt something I'd never experienced before. Pure, uncomplicated joy. No anxiety about what my family might say. No worry about whether I deserved this moment. No fear that it would all disappear. Just perfect happiness surrounded by people who truly wanted the best for us. The reception was magical. We danced under the stars, shared stories with friends who felt more like family than my actual relatives ever had, and celebrated a love that had triumphed over toxicity. When Caleb gave his speech, he said something that will stay with me forever. Sometimes the best thing that can happen to us is losing the people who were never really supporting us in the first place. Today, Arya and I aren't just starting a marriage. We're starting a family built on choosing each other every single day. 6 months later, I can honestly say that losing my toxic family was the best thing that ever happened to me. Caleb and I have built a life surrounded by people who celebrate our successes instead of trying to sabotage them. We've learned that family isn't about blood. It's about the people who show up for you when it matters most. And sometimes, the people who hurt you the most end up giving you the greatest gift of all, the freedom to become who you were always meant to be.